everyone. I thought I'd open this video with some inspiration for you, something to make you enjoy the video and feel more creative. And by doing little artworks, I think that it puts less pressure on you and gets that creativity going, knowing that it's only a small piece of paper. Doesn't matter if you make a mistake. Hopefully 9 times out of 10 you'll make a really lovely painting. We all get the odd one that's not so perfect, but hey, it's only a tiny piece of paper. So this is just a little seascape I've done, and I'm going to show you how to do that, and those gorgeous waves. A lovely little morning light one, just done very loosely and very simplistically. I think that's the secret, not doing too much and just keeping them very simple and very minimalist. Some little birds in that one in the sky. I do love this one. It reminds me just of the area where we live, around a lake. Some little gum nuts there in the corner, done with pencil, and some little birds in the sky. I do like the idea of doing these landscapes and having some little things extending out of the painting. And you can see that there's trees there, but there's no actual details. Lovely stronger colours in this one for those that like the richer colours. And here's a little tiny one that I did just on a scrap of watercolour paper. Just a simple little sky with a bit of an ocean and a tree with a bird. I do like the high horizon line in this one. I think that's lovely, and the lovely alizarin that I've used just in the trees at the top. You can see they're trees, but there's no detail there. So just remember when you are doing these little works to keep it very simple and don't overwork them. This is Jervis Bay, not far from where I live, and where we had a house a few years ago and where my children grew up. They loved to go to the beach at Jervis Bay and play and do surfing and all those kind of seaside activities. Another one with stronger colour. Very experimental techniques in this one. I do love that dark cloud at the top that's looking as though it's raining, and just a few splatters on the cliff there that just indicate some texture and just some scratching out of the tree trunks along the tree line. Lucky last, another seascape with lots of splattering. I decided to splatter some white all over this one. It looks a bit like salt spray. And another one of my favourite places at Jervis Bay. The clouds on this one were lifted out while the sky was wet. I just used a little bit of tissue. But I'm going to show you some techniques that you can use to make some little paintings just like these. So bear with me and let's go and do some painting. I'm hoping to inspire you with some mini artworks today, and you can see here that I've cut my paper to approximately 15 centimeters square, and I'm just carefully using some masking tape on the edge to mask off a border, something like this. Now you can either cut with a guillotine like I've done with this one. You can see the sharp edge, This guillotine here has a rotary edge, so you can cut them like that too, or you can even tear them. They do look lovely when they're torn edges. And so getting them ready, getting your squares of paper ready, and just putting some painter's tape around the edges. Painter's tape is really good because it removes easily without tearing off the paper. And I got this painter's tape just from Bunnings, which is one of our hardware stores here in Australia. And I'm sure other hardware stores overseas have this type of tape too. But it is very easily removed and it leaves no residue. So that's going to give us a lovely border, something like this. See here, really nice border on our work. And it's just perfect for doing on a greeting card or as a little artwork like these ones. So I'm going to do a few of these little paintings for you, just freeform, and hopefully they inspire you and get you creating. Hi everyone, for this next landscape I'm going to be using some experimental techniques. First of all, I'm going to take a little bit of cobalt blue and I'm just going to drag that across my surface, my paper, in a diagonal way. I'm going to pick up a little bit of warm yellow, like a cad yellow, with a little bit of opera rose, and just adding some of those lovely peachy colours to the scene. Okay, I'm going to just put that to one side and just show you some quinacridone gold deep. We'll put that on the palette. And also a little bit of indigo. Now, tube paint is best for this. If you haven't got tube paint, just mix up a really rich mix of watercolour and use that. Now I'm just going to use a plastic card, just one that you get from those shops that want to always give you them, and I'm just going to just add a little bit of those colours to the edge of the card. I'm just making sure that you've got a bit of both colours on there. Now I'm just going to use a low horizon line, so about 2/3 of the way down the painting. Just adding a little bit of colour, bring it out just a little bit more. I don't want the gap to be right in the centre. Just off to one side. Now just using a small round brush with just some clean water on it, we can just start to just add some trees by just touching in to the colour that's already in place. You've got a little bit more control doing it this way than just having the background really wet to start with. So I'm just softening back with a little bit of clean water. The same underneath, it's just some clean water and just picking up a little bit of those colours and just allowing them to run. So they'd be like the reflections in the water. Okay, I'm just picking up a little bit more of that quinacridone gold, just touching a little bit into this side and a little bit just into here, just to bring out those colours a little bit. Okay, now I do love to, I'll just soften off that area too. No harsh lines in that distance. I do love to get some drips happening, just a little bit of interest to the painting. So I'm just getting some clean water on my brush and I'm tilting my work and just adding a little bit of clean water to these areas and allowing them to just run a little bit. And you can just encourage that by just shaking. There we go. And it can look really, really effective in a landscape. There we go. Just a few little dribbles is all you need. Okay, just to finish off this little landscape, before I dry it, I'm just going to put a couple of birds in there, and then I'll dry it off and come back and finish the reflections for you. So we just need a mechanical pencil. And I'll just place a couple of birds in the sky. And I'll just dry that off and come back and finish with the final little touches. The little touches are using a white Posca pen. You could definitely use a really fine brush and some acrylic if you wanted to, or you could use a gel pen. So I just need a straight edge, so I'm just going to use another piece of paper, and just, I want the waterline to be halfway between the dark area. So just popping that in. A little bit higher, and just using the pen in some broken lines. And just smudging it out with your finger while it's still wet. Now, just to add a few more reflections there. Just softening back with your finger while it's still wet. And there we go. Now just for the final reveal, we'll take the tape off. And we have our lovely little painting there. So only one more thing to do is sign the work. And thank you for watching. Enjoy doing your little experimental minimalist mini watercolors. Very minimalist and very mini. They're so sweet and they just look lovely when you give them as a gift. I really enjoy giving these away and also selling them in my studio. And anyway, you go ahead, have a play. Definitely let me know how you go, whether you enjoyed the video, and bye bye for now. Welcome back everyone. I'm going to do a very minimalist landscape for you, and lots of fun and very easy to do when you know how. So hopefully I'm going to show you how in this video and inspire you to be creative with your own landscapes. I've got my tape on and it's all down very carefully around the edges. I'll just take that bit of watercolour. I've reused the tape, so I just took that little bit of watercolour that was sitting on top off. Now I'm going to get some phthalo blue and just running it across the top makes a lovely fresh sky colour. As I come down, I'm going to pick up a little bit of ultramarine blue. Now I'm just going to let them mix and mingle on their own. Now while they're drying, I'm just going to put the sand in, and for the sand I'm just going to use a little bit of quinacridone gold, but it definitely has a lot of water in it, so nice and transparent. And I'm just bringing it up, and I just want to soften the line here because that's where the sea will be coming over the sand. So just softening back with some clean water. A little bit closer to the bottom here, I'm just going to give it a little bit more colour. And just dabbing in some of that quinacridone gold. Now that has to dry off, so I'll quickly dry it and come back to you. My painting is dry. I'm just going to use a square piece of paper. You could definitely use just a ruler. And I am going to make a horizon line about 1/3 of the way down the page. And I'm just going to pencil that in. There we go. Now I'm going to just erase that back just a fraction. Okay, now we've got our horizon line on. I'm just going to pick up a little bit of phthalo turquoise, quite transparently, and putting that along the horizon line and working our way down over the yellow. Now a little bit of phthalo blue. We'll just put that a little bit towards the top here. Okay, so while that's drying, we will just put some islands in, and they will bleed a little bit, and I want that to happen. They will bleed into the lower area. For the islands, I'm going to use some indigo. I want them to be quite dark. If you haven't got indigo, you could just use a Payne's grey, something like that. one there, and just have the tops just a little bit irregular. One over this side. And then just one little one just in here. It's a little bit further away. Now, as I said, I wasn't worried if they bled into the bottom area, but the paint underneath had dried, so what I'm going to do is just get some clean water on my brush, and I'm just going to just soften into the area underneath the island. So it's just clean water and just softening off that really harsh line. Now we can actually use a tissue and just crumpled up and just pressing into those islands will lift out some paint. Now if it's not lifting out, all you need to do is just put a little bit more water on it and press. I'm quite happy with those as they are now. We're almost there. I just need to do some more work on the sand and a little bit on the waves too. So with the sand, I'm just going to use a clean tissue and mask off the sea area, and using some of the colours that I've already used, like the quinacridone gold, I'm going to do a little bit of splattering on the sand. And I'm just going to mix that with some of that phthalo blue. And splatter there. I'll take the tissue off and we're just going to lift back some of the excess paint. And now we'll do the waves. For the waves, I'm using a white acrylic. Now you could use a gouache, that would be fine. And I'm using a round brush. Now the loading for the brush is, I've just dipped my brush in water and I've blotted it on the paper towel. The loading for the brush is putting the brush with a ferrule near the white paint, and I'm going to pull that white paint along the edge. So I have a roll of white paint along the edge of my brush. Now my paint is facing me or the edge of the wave. So we're just going to start around here and just offloading some of that paint. couple more towards the back a little bit. Now, the other thing that I like to do on these very minimalistic landscapes is just a little bit of splattering. So I'm just going to get a little bit of that white paint again and add some water to it. You can't splatter with thick paint. You really do need to thin it down to a creamy consistency. Now, if you don't want it to go on the rest of the painting, definitely do mask off. And we'll just put some sea spray on there. So here's our little painting, very sweet, very easy to do, and anybody that loves beach scenes will love this one. And pop it on a card or just do this for a little gift, a little miniature artwork. So there's my beach scene for you. Hope you've enjoyed watching. Okay, everyone, just going to wet my paper and just allow that to soak in. And I am going to pick a lovely cobalt blue to start with. This is a Daniel Smith colour, but any brand of paint would be fine. So just tilting a little bit towards me on a slight angle. Popping in the cobalt blue. Now I'm picking up a little bit of phthalo blue. And I'm going to just add a little bit of that towards the top area. And that'll continue just to run down on its own. The next colour I'm going to pick up is a little bit of yellow ochre. This is for the land area. Just make that a little bit stronger. So I'm thinking thirds rather than the halfway line. My horizon line is above the halfway mark. Now I'm going to use my trusty card and pick up a little bit of those colours that I put out earlier. And I'm going to just carefully just run them down that horizon line. Just grabbing my brush now, and you can see where the paint is still wet, it's starting to run, and that's exactly what I wanted to do. I'm just going to pick up a little bit of extra quinacridone gold and just adding little touches just below the tree line and down this edge, and I'm just going to tilt away from me and just allowing that paint to run across the surface at an angle. So by just touching and letting the watercolour release itself, we're getting a lovely warmth in the foreground or the middle ground. Just going to take a tissue and just mop up down this bottom corner here. I've got a bit of a puddle, so I'm just going to mop that up. Now just using a small brush, just a small detail brush, I'm just going to pick up a little bit more of that quinacridone gold and just touch it in to this top area, just here and there. Now the blue paint, the cobalt, has already started to dry, so just using a clean brush with a little bit of water on it, I just want to soften off some of those edges. And then picking up a little bit more of the indigo, I'm just going to touch again into the colour that I've just put on. Again, just some clear water. And just softening off some of those lines. Now I'm going to take a toothpick. It's just an ordinary toothpick. Anything sharp would be fine. And I'm going to just start to just add some little tree trunks in those trees. And there we have a very sweet little landscape. Now we can add just a little bit more of interest, I think, down in this bottom corner. So picking up some more of that quinacridone gold along with the indigo. Now again, that's a little bit wet, so I'm just going to use a tissue just to suck a little bit up. Okay, now I'm going to use a script liner just to pull out just a few grassy areas. There's here shadow creating, wanted to go out, so I'll pop right back. So let's just have a look at what that looks like. Why I'm wiping the tape is when I take the tape off, I want it to stay nice and clean on my fingers so that I don't get paint on them and do a blot. So here we have a little landscape. I just wanted now to use my mechanical pencil, which had a little blob of water on it. We'll take that off. You also learn how to fix things up when you watch my videos. So I just wanted to add a little bit of foliage down the bottom. Like little twigs or grasses. We'll leave it up to the viewer to decide what they are. You don't have to always tell the whole story. You can leave it up to the person that's actually looking to decide what they're looking at. And there we have our first little landscape. Just a quick run through for you of some more of my mini paintings. Some you've seen, some are new. Hopefully you'll go out and get inspired to do some of your own mini landscapes. While I'm going through these, I'll just mention that I'm just trying to build my channel, and I would love it if you could, if you haven't already, if you could subscribe, and that way you will be notified of any new videos that I'm putting up, which is a bonus. I'm going to try and put up at least one, possibly 2 videos every week from now on. I'm really enjoying learning this new task. I seem to have done a lot of videos, but I'm still learning. I'm still trying to figure out the best way to do things. There's a couple of seascapes, and that's the last one. That's one that I did for you today, I think. So hit that subscribe button and enjoy creating your own mini landscapes. Again, thanks for watching, and come back. Bye.